the ideas we have are important. The ideas are very important, bro. Now, I was raised, my stepfather was a Nation of Islam member. And so I attended several conferences. I met the Minister Louis Farrakhan. I was there for 2 speeches that he gave in large groups. I sold Afrocentric coloring books and bean pies and newspapers and incense.
Where were you selling them?
And like black dolls. Malcolm X Boulevard, Harlem, New York. You know, we would drive up in Harlem. It'd be Saturday after school. I go up to Harlem and we would camp out, and we had a little fold out table, and we would sell, make some extra cash, and also engage with people and just communicate with people. It was really interesting. To be honest, I hated it. I was 12 years old. I was like 13, 14. I wanted to stay at home in our little, like, with the fan on, you know, and watch cartoons.
What was the main message you say? What was the Nation of Islam's message to the people of Harlem, would you say, at that time?
I think the main message was a message of Black uplift and positivity. It was a message of how can we take control of our own destiny. It seemed to me that there was a lot of like discontent with like appealing to the white majority for whether it was reparations or some sort of a social benefit from the white majority. Like that white majority was unreachable according to this group. And we needed to organize ourselves and have our own communities and our own schools and our own healthcare systems and our own economy, and to support each other in that way. So that was like the crystal message. Okay. And then sadly, I think what was ushered in along with that are other really views that I disagree with. Like, you know, a way of talking about white people that is reductionist, a way of talking about Jews that is historically, you know, wrong.
So the white people thing would be like the melanin theory, basically. Like, what would be kind of like there's like a biological story, right? Of like biological inferiority. Yeah. Like, is that
the idea? Is that white people are devils, or some, you know, are just like biologically incapable of kindness and not incapable, but less capable. Like the way history panned out, the way that Europe dominated the world is what you would expect, because Europeans have no moral compass and they're kind of devils or monsters. And, you know, there's no reason for that. You know, there's no reason for that to be part of our rhetoric and our narrative. Primarily because it's just not true. Part of that as well is a pretty, I would say, disgusting approach to like a discussion about what Judaism is and what Jewish people are. And so I've been around that for some time, and I remember just being uncomfortable with that. And what really saddens me is I think today, as we're working on producing a better society, we're seeing this Black community that is gaining a voice and is like trying to lead the discussion on what this good society could look like. And instead of reaching to like a Bill Fletcher or Manning Marable or so many other Black leaders I know who are inclusive and intersectional in their critique and in their vision of the future, sadly, people like Khalid Muhammad are getting a renewed voice, and people are reaching out to that kind of worldview. On top of like a discussion of race and the issues around race in America, you have to add this layer of hatred towards another group. That's not going to work. That can't work for all the reasons I think we've laid out already and that Bill Fletcher tried to articulate as well. Nick Cannon got in trouble because he was on a podcast and said a few things. I think he referred to Jews and white people generally as savages. He also made a claim about Black people being the chosen people, actually the chosen people, the actual Hebrews kind of thing. There's so many things in there to unpack. There's something about like the whole idea of chosenness needs to be unpacked, if you ask me. It's a difficult, if you ask me, a piece of nonsense. You know, I speak as a secularist. I don't think that any tribe or group of people is chosen by God.
The context is he had brought on his show. So I mean, there's an element here that's like he kind of wanted to talk about these things because this is Griff's lane, right? This is why he got asked to leave Public Enemy. Was particularly, I believe, because of some of his theories around Jews and things like this. And so when you invite him on your show, it's not like you just got caught up in a moment and you weren't intellectually prepared. It seemed like he wanted to talk about some of these things.
I didn't even know. I thought he was on someone else's podcast.
No, it's his podcast. Yeah. And we've now reached the limits of what I know about this situation. So I'm going to send it back to you. But that's about all I know.
We talked about this before. The right to free speech is super important. But we're also attempting to build a society where each of us, all of us, are required to do a little bit more thought, have a little bit more care, to be sensitive to the particular narratives of particular groups, and to understand that people are suffering. And so we can't use words loosely that could offend communities of people. And as people of color, we know that firsthand. We are very sensitive to certain dog whistles. And that's like, you know, dog whistles are more subtle. We're very sensitive to more blatant claims. And I would say that what Nick Cannon said was in the category of a more blatant
it's a full narrative. It's like a full narrative that fits into like a historical story that's been used to dehumanize Jews, that's led to, and he's not responsible for the Holocaust for saying it, but I'm just saying like there's like a whole history here of these kinds of narratives leading to like massive pogroms and like mass persecution of Jewish people. So it's like, you know, he's fitting into that history when he puts these ideas out there.
We should be able to articulate how this is wrong. And there's a kind of quiet around Nick Cannon that is hurtful. There's a anti-Semitic offshoot of the pro-black movement that some people can be susceptible to if we're not grounded properly. Wiley's another rap artist out in London who I've been a fan of, and he actually got dropped by his management as well. This happened, I think, today. Oh, he says in one tweet, he said, "I don't care about Hitler. I care about black people." You know? Why? That's completely unnecessary, and it indicates that you're not thinking in any serious way about these problems. I don't know. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Hitler probably would have cared about black people. Like in the sense of like they would have become an issue and a target if they were living in Germany in any kind of like large numbers. And so it's important to acknowledge like ideologies that elevate such a pathetically bad, a category that has been so bad for the human race, which is race. You know, which I separate from ethnicity, for example, which is broader. Or sorry, like race covers a bunch of ethnicities and it groups them all together. And it was born of economic exploitation. It was like, you know, I think we talked about this in the Dave Chappelle one or whatever, you know. And it's like, and that's what the category has served. And so it's like it's about, I think there's a responsibility to be careful about it when you're touching it, when you're putting it at the center of your argument, because you obviously have to in certain situations. It says you can't understand reality without it at this point. It's been such a fundamental category for creating the societies that we live in today, particularly if you're in a country like the United States or whatever. And so it's like you can't not talk about it, and it has to be part of the movement. It has to be taken into consideration. But you have to be careful about like what is the world you're moving towards. Because if you're moving towards a world that's doubling down on the significance of something that's so not based in any kind of biological reality, that's been so harmful up till now, you know, it's. I think you have a responsibility to kind of like think about like what this is, and this is what we're talking about, the vision with Rosa Parks, for example. You know, it's like these people had a vision, You know, like they had imagination, as you said. You know, they had an idea of the world they wanted to move towards, and it's like there's a responsibility. I think if you're gonna go out there and be public with your thoughts on what's wrong with the world or whatever, you have a responsibility to kind of think about where you headed, where do you think we should be going, as well as a responsibility to truth, as well as just a responsibility to truth.